Good evening, and welcome to Suffering in Silence with Minister Tia on Luv Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Luv Bay family, we're rising out of the ashes together. Our topic on this evening is domestic violence resources, substance abuse, and recovery. Our co-host on this evening is Carrie Hardy, and our guest for the night is Jen Cutting. Listeners, if you have any questions or comments for our guest or co-host, you can email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. If you have any resources that you would like to share with us on a national or local level from your country, your community, your local organizations, or your faith community, you can also email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. So, Carrie, you want to say hello to the listeners on tonight?
Hi, you guys. So we actually do have, we're talking about substance abuse and domestic violence this evening. And we actually do have a guest who's going to be joining us in the next 15 minutes. She just messaged me. She works with a lot of people that are in active use, and also people who are not housed, so homeless people. So she's very busy. But tonight I just wanted to talk to you guys about substance use, which is drug addiction, and also domestic violence. So how do women basically navigate themselves away from certain situations when they're dealing with substance use, especially if the partner is a way to access that substance? And a lot of times they can't reach out to the police because they're in active use, or perhaps they're also doing other things that may not be conducive to reaching out to the police. So we just wanted to talk about that. And I did have a friend who passed away from drug addiction. And I feel like when people think of drug addiction, they vilify it so much, and they think that it is a selfish act.
So, listeners, we're going to share some resources with you, and then we will continue going forward into the topic for this evening. First, we have in Australia, the National Family Violence Counseling Service. Their website is www.1800respect.org.au. Their phone number is 1-800-737-732. We also have the Canadian Women's Foundation. Their website is canadianwomen.org. Their phone number is 1-866-293-4483. And then we have the Befrienders Volunteer Action to Prevent Suicide. To find a helpline by country, you can visit their website at www.befrienders.org. And again, listeners, our topic on tonight is domestic violence resources, substance abuse, and recovery. So our guest on this evening, Jen Cutting, will be joining us in a few minutes. And unfortunately, Carrie has some technical difficulties right now. But what we wanted to do on this evening, we wanted to express and to stress that domestic violence does involve other areas that cross into our lives. And so we may have individuals, victims and survivors, who are dealing with issues with drug and alcohol abuse. Yes, Carrie. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was saying, did you hear if I asked you, did you ever know anyone who struggled with substance use, even if it was just pills or alcohol? And what was your...
Yeah, so I was just saying to the listeners that some victims and survivors dealing with domestic violence also have issues with alcohol abuse or substance abuse. And it's a symptom of the domestic violence. Or maybe if that addiction was already present and then somewhere along the line domestic violence may have come into play. And so, yes, I've known individuals dealing with substance abuse issues. And it's hard. It's hard all the way around because you're dealing with the domestic violence and then you're dealing with the drug and alcohol addiction or whatever the addiction may be. And so that also plays tricks and deals with, your self-esteem, and then not wanting to reach out for help because an individual can feel like, well, if I'm doing this is another reason that I may deserve to be in the situation that I'm with. Or as you were saying earlier, some individuals do want to reach out for help if they're dealing with the domestic violence, and they don't because they may be in active use and they feel like if I reach out for help in this area, I'm going to be I don't know what's the word I want to use, going to be punished for the drug and alcohol addiction. But there are cases, and I know that some abusers force their victims or force the survivors to participate in drug and alcohol use. So it's that is can be a part of the abuse as well. Hi, Jen. How are you?
Hi.
Hi. So, listeners, we have Jen Cuddy joining us now. So, Jen, you can take a moment and introduce yourself to the listeners.
Sure. My name is Jen Cutting. I'm a woman in long-term recovery. I'm also a CARC, a SERPA, a rape crisis counselor, Narcan trainer. I'm a syringe peer, and I'm also the founder of Supplies for Life. I know it's a big, long laundry list behind my name, but I've worked very hard for it.
Yes, and Jen is awesome. She is fabulous. She's a queen, okay? And can you talk to us, Jen, a little bit? What is Supplies for Life? What do you do there? What is harm reduction? What is Narcan training? What is that?
All right. So Supplies for Life is an organization it's a combination of it's like its own entity, but it's also a program. I service the entire county that I live in, Delaware County, which is about the size of Rhode Island if you lay it out. So it's a very large county with inside New York State. And I work with people in active addiction, newly home from prison, any type of incarceration, rehab, mental institutions, all the places our diseases take us. I work with people who are homeless, who live in a shelter, and I provide coaching services that I'm able to do because I'm a CARC. I'm a certified addiction recovery coach and peer advocate. I go to court with people. I advocate for them. I assist them in finding housing. If they are domestic violence survivors, I connect them with services for that. It's really a whole slew of things. And how it really started was I got sick and tired of sending people to rehab or inpatient, whatever kind of inpatient they were going to, with no underwear, no toothpaste, no basic hygiene needs. So I started an Amazon wish list, and I have a YouTube channel as well. And my YouTube followers, who are the most amazing people in the entire universe, for my birthday 2 years ago, they bought my list out like 3 times, and it just continued to develop and grow from there. And after doing it on my own for about probably 2 years, because it's been around now for 3 years, I decided I was going to become my own not-for-profit, and I didn't know the first thing about doing that. So someone had said, well, you should get a fiscal sponsor, so this way you can start getting money, so you're not like doing this for free and killing yourself for, nothing. When I started this program, I was on unemployment, like I had nothing. And I contacted the largest private nonprofit agency in my county, and they actually made me a counter offer and was like, we would love to bring you on board under our umbrella and give you access to all our services for the people you're serving, because it's a clientele that we can't reach because we don't know how to. And I consulted for them for a year, and this past April, I just went full-time running my own program under their umbrella. And ta-da, here we are.
Yes. And then can you tell us what Narcan is?
So
That's very
Narcan
important.
Narcan is a opiate. It's specifically for opiates. It's an opiate reversal medication. So if someone is actively overdosing from opioids, you would use this medication. You can use it nasally, or you can do it intramuscular with a needle. And what it does is it blocks the receptors in the brain, so you no longer continue to overdose on whatever drug you have just taken.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and so you basically teach people how to do that and make sure they understand what that requires.
Correct.
Okay. And
I do like in my community, I'll do like Narcan trainings and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So in this training that you do for people in your community, do you feel like people who enact use that are trying to find resources, can you tell me about some of the stigmas and the hindrances they face, especially women?
Girl, the stigma is absurd. Like, it's absurd. Like, I cannot even believe
if they're trying to find help.
It's like it's like trying to walk up a mountain backwards on roller skates. Like, seriously, that's like the only visual I can really give. The stigma is absurd. First off, it obviously you're trash, right? Because you're into drugs, so you're trash. You're poverty stricken. You're low level education. You have no one who cares about you. You don't care about yourself. Like, the stigma is just absurd. And especially if you are a female, well, then you must be a whore. And on top of that, you must, like, your mama must not have taught you better, because how would you get yourself in these positions and in these situations when it's just the reality of the world we live in? People don't believe you if you have domestic violence situations because they assume you wanted it, or you're in this, you're in this situation because, you put yourself there, or whatever the case may be. It's completely, the stigma is absolutely horrible. People don't understand, so their first thing to do is to judge and assume that they know what's going on when they don't. Nowadays, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone that doesn't know someone that has some sort of substance use in their family, in their life, in someone that they love. And people are just so judgy, and until it happens to them directly, it's like they just, I don't know, man, it's easier to cast a stone than it is to open up a door and give somebody a hug. And I just don't understand that, because that's not the world I function in.
Mm-hmm. And so you talked to us about stigma. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about any of the, what's the word to use? Would you say clients? You would say clients, the people you help? Mm-hmm. What do you say?
Clients.
Okay, clients. Okay, clients.
I really just call them my people, but in a professional setting, I call them clients.
Okay. Does this stigma, have you seen that this stigma goes into the family unit? For example, have you ever worked with a client who, they maybe have a spouse who is no longer in active use in long-term recovery, or perhaps a spouse that never used substances? Do you feel like, have they ever received that kind of stigmatized energy from their spouse or from a loved one? And
yes.
How does this impact recovery and addiction?
So when you're in active addiction and your spouse is not, and they throw some very strong language at you, this is supposed to be your person, right? This is supposed to be your mate. This is supposed to be your best friend, your ride or die, however you want to call it. And then they throw some grimy ass type of words at you. That shit really hits you hard. Like, that's the ultimate, that's the ultimate stigma. Like, I know for me personally, my husband and I were both active together, and then I was sober. He had relapse, and I was still sober, and then he got, we've gone through the gamut of being in active addiction, one of us being clean, one of us not, all of it. And it's rough, because I know I have said some stuff, I'm guilty of it too, at a turn that I never should have said to him, that I've seen the look on his face, and I'm like, shit, I probably should have phrased that differently. Because sometimes how it sounds here and then when it comes out here is two totally different worlds. And, it's one thing when So as a parent-child relationship, you want your parents' approval. You want their acceptance. You want to know, like, hey, I did them proud. I feel like I did a good job. It's the same thing with your spouse. You know what I mean? Like, if you're out ripping and running and they call you out on it, that's very, it's very difficult, because you know your cover's blown, number one. This is the last person you want to be lying to, and this is the last person you want judging you, because you want acceptance from them. You want to feel their love and their acceptance. And it sucks. Stigma inside relationships, absolutely 100%. And then sometimes when you're fighting and somebody makes a low blow and says something and you know it's out of anger, you know, I'll keep it on the eye. For me, I know I've said stuff out of anger. And for my husband, I know he has said stuff out of anger. And we know how to push each other's buttons the best. And that's when stigma really becomes a thing.
So two people who,
I was just going to say, so Jen, when you're dealing with your clients, do you also offer support to family and friends to assist them and how to be supportive to your clients?
You know, a lot of times, believe it or not, I'll start working with someone and they'll tell their parent or the significant other, like, I'm working with Jen Cutting and yada, yada, yada. And then all of a sudden I get all the messages, you know, from the significant others or the parents. And I tell them, like, listen, I can neither confirm nor deny, but if you want to ask me something in regards to how you can deal with this, please go right ahead and I will give you as much advice as possible. But I can neither confirm nor deny whether I'm working with your child, mother, brother, husband, wife, whatever, because until they bring me into the room and say, hey, mom, hey, husband, this is Jen, meet her. And, you know, Jen, you have my permission to speak with so-and-so. If what I'm doing, if they don't feel confident and comfortable that I'm 100% there for them, it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. But if family members do reach out to me, like I have a girl that I work with, as soon as she said my name, probably 5 seconds after she walked away from her mother, she messaged me, her brother messaged me, her brother's best friend messaged me, like, we love her. We want to see her healthy and happy. Please tell me you're working with her. And I said, I can't. But if you have some questions that you need to know, like, how does rehab work? What are recovery rates? Like, things like that, then yes. And I encourage everyone, you know, addiction is a family disease, unfortunately. When one person is an addict, the entire family goes through it. And it's rough stuff, man. Like, I hope I'm never, ever in any of these parents' seats, you know? Like, I've been in it as a step parent, but my daughter is going to be 11 in December. And I don't ever want to trade places with those parents, because I can't even imagine. I know what it's like to love an active spouse, and it sucks. Like, it completely and totally sucks. You are mad, you're sad, you're worried, you're hurt. You feel like, where did I go wrong? What didn't I see? What could have I done differently? It's a whole gamut of shit. It sucks.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about how you were with your husband when he was in active use and you were not. But then there was also a period of time where you guys were both in active use, right? And you guys were together.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you about being in love while in active use with another person who's in active use. There's this idea that two people who are in active use, or even two people who even did drugs in the past, they shouldn't be with each other because they're toxic for each other, or they shouldn't be together. It's always like, if you were addicted to drugs, you need to be with somebody who never was on drugs. Like, it's always very that. What's your take on that?
So, like, I also don't believe in tough love. Like, I think that's a bunch of shit. I think tough love is for the birds, because let's face it, like, when did yelling at somebody ever make them feel loved and wanted and accepted and be like, yes, I want to change? No.
Yeah.
No. You know, I don't agree with that. And I feel like also the principle of, it is very difficult if you are somebody who is on the path of recovery from whatever your drug use or alcohol use looked like in the past, and now you want to go be with a so-called normie. I mean, maybe it'll work. You'd have to work really hard, because you're going to go through things they genuinely, truly are just not going to understand in your recovery process, because they have never been through it themselves. the reason why my career path, peers in general, is so successful is because that live life experience, that bond that y'all are able to share because you walk the same path. That's what makes it so successful. And I feel like in relationships, every relationship has to have that point of bonding where they relate to one another, inherently on so many different levels because they've been through a similar path in their life. I think newly in sobriety, like, okay, so for Jared and I, that's my husband, we were separated for an extended period of time. I mean, due to the fact of prison, absolutely. It wasn't like we were like, no, we don't want to be together anymore. It was because we were incarcerated. But that gave us a space to be ourselves and work on ourselves in our own space and in our own time. Mm-hmm. It gave me the freedom to explore other things as far as what I really wanted to be in life. Especially as a woman, we kind of, I don't know whether it's intentional or it's a societal thing, but we tend to meld into whatever the man or significant other in our life is, right? We tend to start to have their likes and their dislikes. And for me, that space, especially when I was newly sober, that gave me space to think about what I wanted, not as a mom, not as a wife, not as a girlfriend, not as anything but me. And it gave me room to grow and become who I wanted to be, who I needed, right? And my husband was in prison and doing his own thing and working on his own demons and working shit out how he needed to. And that gave him the space to say, like, maybe I don't want to be like the rest of the men in my family. Maybe I want to be different. Or maybe I want to be exactly like them. Whatever thought process he had, that gave him the space to do that. So for me, I don't believe in that you shouldn't be together with someone because they want to use drugs and so did you. Like, that's retarded, in my opinion. And I feel like, I feel like that's the stupidest thing you could possibly ever say, because why would you want to be with someone who can never understand what you went through? Or what happens if you're like knee deep about to be in a relapse and you recognize it? You're going to want to say to your partner, listen, this is how I'm feeling. Like, I think shit's about to get bad for me and I need help. Someone who doesn't understand maybe might not take that as seriously as someone who's like, all right, I hear you. Like, what do you need me to do? Do you want to hit a meeting? Do you want me to go to your therapist with you? What do you need me to do for you? Mm-hmm. So I don't really believe that's, I don't know. I could never imagine being with someone who didn't understand the path that I walked. I don't, especially now, the career path that I've chosen, like, someone who's never been through it would never understand why I do the things that I do. Mm-hmm. And I just think maybe the first year of sobriety, maybe you shouldn't date at all. Like, unless you're married or in an already serious relationship, you shouldn't be going in and setting yourself up to be hurt. Because unfortunately, in the beginning of sobriety, we're learning emotions and feelings and shit doesn't feel good and we don't know what to do with what we got because emotions suck and they're hard. Mm-hmm. So I think the first year of your sobriety, you should 100% be in a relationship with yourself. But to say you should never date someone who's in recovery too is ridiculous.
So Jen, can you share with us your contact information, your YouTube channel, and then some of the resources that would be available?
Sure. So my YouTube is a self-titled YouTube channel. It's just Jen Cutting. I wanted to make it something, easy to find and whatever. And then you can find all my other social media through my YouTube page. Like TikTok is my name. My Instagram is JL Cutting. And I think, believe it or not, especially in this day and age, I think there are a ton of really, really great resources on TikTok for sobriety, whether it's from alcohol, substances, domestic violence, all those things of that nature. And also Facebook groups. Facebook groups have become like life for a lot of people. I know I have something on Facebook. It's called the Jen Cutting Community. And people come in there and they're like, I'm having a hard day. Like, I want to pick up today. And the rest of the community posts and get in touch with them. And I've had, people meet up and go for coffee when they were struggling. And it's just really a beautiful thing because the support system is amazing. There's also, local supports that you can call, depending on where you live or what your state is like. Usually most states have an MCAT, which is like places you can call if you are feeling unsafe or things of that nature. Mm-hmm. For me, where I live in the county of Delaware, we have Delaware Opportunities, and that's where I run my program. And in there, we have like homeless prevention, we have HUD, we have HEAP, we have a SNAP advocate, things of that nature. You can always go to like your local DSS office, things like that.
Thank you. And so, Luv Bay, we want to take a moment and just welcome you again to Suffering in Silence with Minister Tia on Luv Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We are here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern with a replay on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. And then again also on Thursday and Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern. And Luv Bay, we are continuing to rise out of the ashes together. I want to share just a few more resources before we go back to Carrie with more questions and comments for Jen. First, we have the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Their website is www.thehotline.org. Their phone number is 1-800-799-7233. And then we have the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, also known as RAIN. Their website is www.rainn.org. And then we have the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Their phone number is 1-800-273-8255. Carrie?
Yes, thank you so much, Tia. And I wanted to ask you, Jen, so for women who are in active use, do they have any resources for domestic violence? I know you talked about the stigma, but if there are any, could you tell us of some?
So I know in my county, so the agency Delaware Opportunities that I work for also houses, it's called SAVE, Safe Against Violence, and that is where I'm a rape crisis counselor for as well. And we have a plethora of resources under that agency title as well. And we have a shelter that is available. So if someone is in a domestic situation and they need to get out immediately and them and their children don't have anywhere to go, there's a shelter that is available. We accompany people to court dates. We help get orders of protection. We provide, food, clothing. We get transportation set up. We just, the worst thing about being in a domestic violence situation is you are scared to death, literally. Mm-hmm. You are petrified. You don't know who you can trust. Mm-hmm. People either over-exaggerate or act like you're crazy and it's not a big deal at all. And it's unbelievably scary. And I know this for certain because I've been there myself. Years ago, before I even got my life together, this was a thought process for me. I personally used the services that Safe Against Violence has to offer at our agency. And, it's crazy because when I first came on board, one of the women who helped me was probably like 2 or 3 months from retiring. And one day I said something to her. She goes, I know, I was just never going to say anything. She was like, but I'll never forget you. So it's just, there's so much stigma surrounding a woman or a man trying to leave a domestic violence situation, and then there's it kind of drives me a little crazy because there's so much stigma on both ends. If you leave, there's stigma. If you stay, there's stigma. Mm-hmm. So it's like you don't know whether to shit or go blind because no matter what you do, people just can't help but talk shit. And it's always, well, why did you stay so long? Oh my God, you left? Why'd you leave? It's not that bad. So no matter what you do, and you're in this like tumultuous relationship in your life that literally you don't know what to do and anything could go wrong at any time. And then you turn to people for help and they just judge you. Mm-hmm. They just judge you like crazy and it's disgusting. And That's why women don't leave. And unfortunately, that's why we now have these courageous women who are trying to fight back, but instead they're being sentenced to life in prison because the fact that they've been abused, heinously abused for years upon years, and they finally lost it and finally gained the strength to fight back. That's not admissible in court. And that, I know that's a whole nother topic. It just pisses me off.
Well,
Sorry.
it's a whole nother topic, but it is part of the truth. There are women in prison right now because they physically defended themselves against their abuser. Whether they ended up killing that person or injuring that person, it was them defending themselves and basically self-defense. And self-defense is not a defense that you can use in some courts of law across some states. So that, that is a real thing. But before you joined, Carrie and I were actually talking about another issue, which is there are some partners who are actually forced into drug and alcohol use by their abusers. So there are some individuals who they didn't start off with an addiction, or they weren't addicted, themselves, or using drugs themselves, but their abuser actually forced them into drug use. And that's a real thing that people unfortunately don't believe, but that is, a real thing. And so now you have an individual who's dealing with domestic violence, and now they have an addiction and still have that additional weight on their shoulders. I didn't make the choice to do this. This person forced me into this, and now I'm struggling with the addiction and the abuse. So can you speak to that issue as well?
It's funny because, well, it's not funny. It's actually sad. Abuse isn't just physical. And I think that's what people get tripped up on sometimes. Yep. They think in order for you to be in an abusive relationship, you have to have black eyes and bruises all over your body and need stitches. And, then they can say, oh, yes, you're an abused person. Yeah. But at the end of the day, that is absolutely not the case 100%. Bruises heal. Mental and emotional, that stays with you and plays in your head all day, every day, at every angle. You get up to go to the bathroom, you replay that conversation in your head. You're in the shower, you're putting your kids on the bus, you're cooking dinner. It's like a record. And I mean, how long can you continue to hear that play before you finally start to say, all right, you're right, I'm stupid, I can't do anything right, I'm whatever your record looks like, right? And unfortunately, then you start to doubt yourself even more than you do. And you say, you know what, he's going out partying, like, me too, right? Me too. Because maybe you're thinking, maybe if I'm just a little more fun, maybe if I'm just not so serious all the time, maybe if I party with him, he'll be nicer to me. And I know personally, I went through a part in my own relationship between me and my husband where when we were doing a lot of cocaine, he would be nice. And I liked the relationship we had when he was nice. And, we talk about this all the time. We have a very amazing relationship today, and I'm incredibly grateful. But it wasn't always like that. It sucked. And we were mentally and emotionally abusive towards each other. And there would be times that I was like, I'm not doing any drugs. And he'd be like, you want to hang out with me? And I'd be like, well, yeah, of course. Well, that's what we're doing tonight. And I'd be like, okay. Or there would be times that he was like, we really got to stop doing this. And I would be like, I think to myself, well, the only time he's nice to me is when we're high. So we're going to get high. And I would go and get something. And of course, he had no willpower to say no because he's an addict as well. And we fed off each other with that. But then there's other situations where someone has absolutely no desire to be using a substance whatsoever. And the person that they are with absolutely 100% forces them to, whether physically forces them to, forces them without their knowledge. And by that, I mean drugs, their drink, their food, puts maybe a little dab of cocaine in their cigarette, whatever they need to do to get to the next step to feel like they're in control and they have the power, because that's what it all comes down to.
Tia, did you have any more questions, follow up on that?
I was just thinking of how drug and alcohol abuse can actually just be symptoms of a domestic violence relationship itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So can you speak to that point?
You know, if you wake up every day and no matter how hard you try, you are told how stupid you are, how unacceptable you are, how fat you are, how ugly you are, how much you mess this up, how much is this, blah, 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 blah. Come to the end of the day, you're like, man, I need a drink. Or you go out, you finally go out, or somebody comes over. You're in an abusive situation, right? And your man has his friend come over, and his friend brings his girlfriend. And she's like, oh, where's the bathroom? Hey, you want to do a line with me? And then you finally feel like, oh my God, I feel great. I feel funny. I feel sexy. I feel witty. I feel like I could be better, right? And then before you know it, that's how you get through how your lifestyle has become. Mm-hmm. And it does not take very much to develop a habit. Mm-hmm. All you need to do is awaken that addiction seed inside of you, that disease, and you're off to the races.
Mm-hmm. Carrie.
Mm-hmm. So when a partner is the way you access drugs, so basically maybe the partner is the breadwinner, or for some reason they're the way you access drugs.
They're the connection.
Mm-hmm. Are there any ways a woman can maneuver herself away from him if she feels like her life is in danger, or even if she just wants to go? But sometimes it takes the impetus of your life is really in danger to exit the situation, mm-hmm. especially if the police isn't an option. Are there any ways women can maneuver themselves away from that partner?
Well, I mean, yes and no. It really, it's hard to give a straight answer with that because mm-hmm. everybody's situation is completely different. Mm-hmm. You know, mm-hmm. I can only speak on the situations that I've helped in this area. I know for me, if I have someone who comes to me or gets a message to me or whatever the case may be, and they really want out or they want to learn about getting out, excuse me, we have plenty of cell phones that we will give them that they can hide, like burner phones. And this way they have access when their phones get taken away from them, because that is a very common punishment in domestic violence situations. Your phones get taken away from you. You know, you get cut off to the outside world. And we do everything we can. We will, you know, what time are you going food shopping? Is he going to be with you? No? Okay, I'll come food shop too that time. And we'll walk around, food shop with someone, you know, just looks like two females walking down an aisle food shopping. But what I'm really doing is making sure you're okay and your life is not in jeopardy. And, you know, making sure you have resources or you have some hidden cash or birth certificates. Give me everyone's birth certificates, social security cards. I'll make copies, bring them back. He won't notice. You know, those are very real things.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing, I don't know why, but even when I talk to some other women about domestic violence, especially if they've never experienced it themselves, I don't know why, but it seems like people can't wrap their mind around the fact, oh, this person might kill me. Like, I don't know why people can't wrap their minds around, no, not the victim, but like people on the outside. They're like, oh no, when they don't even know the person.
Yeah, because they're not in it. Yeah, yeah, because it's not them. Because once I say whatever I say to you, yeah, I get to go home and enjoy the rest of my life. Like, I can go to sleep at night.
And it's easier to put that in a box and say, this is not real. It's not happening. Yeah. And then when something happens, oh my, I didn't see that coming. Oh my God. Because we inherently want to believe that people are good. And we want to pretend like this heinous things are not going on in the world when they really are literally right next door. Yeah. And, you know, we just want to pretend. If we pretend it away, it won't be so bad.
Yeah. And I think Jen Peterkin said this a while ago. Once you acknowledge the truth in front of you, once you actually see what's going on and you stop running from it, then that makes you responsible. You have to do something. So somebody on the outside looking in, if they say, you know what, I believe you, I know you're in a situation, your life is in danger, then that person on the outside looking in, then they become responsible, because you can't say, I know your life is in danger, and then you turn around and walk away. And people don't want that responsibility. So I do believe,
100%.
yeah, it's more than just wanting to believe, everyone is just good. I think a huge part of that is not wanting to be involved, not wanting to take the responsibility. But when it comes close to home and when it becomes that person, then things change. Then the world is supposed to stop, and that's been my experience with people that I've seen. When the problem actually becomes theirs, then everybody's supposed to drop everything and help them. But you wouldn't do it for your neighbor. You wouldn't do it for the person down the street, for the person you go to church with. So I think that's about a responsibility thing. I think it doesn't make sense to me, but I think it's not wanting to take that responsibility. Because again, once you acknowledge it, you can't just easily turn your back. And if you do, you have to be a cold-hearted person to be able to lay down and go to sleep at night knowing that someone expressly shared to you that their life is in danger and you didn't do or say anything to help them at all.
Right. And I think it's just easier that way, right? Like, if I pretend like this don't exist, then I don't have to be a part of it, and I don't have to, it's just cleaner. When you get involved in someone's domestic situation, because unfortunately 9 times out of 10, they're not going to leave, right? They're not leaving. You know how many times it takes you before you leave? Like, it's a process. Same way, like when you decide you want to get sober, it's a process. It doesn't just happen overnight. So when you get involved in somebody's messy stuff, you get emotionally into it. You get emotionally attached to it. There's not a client that I work with that I'm not involved. And by involved, I mean like in their children's lives. Like, how are they? Are they okay? What's going on for Christmas? Do y'all need to sign up for Toys for Tots so this way your baby has something? Like, I'm emotionally invested in every single person I work with because, well, I mean, I guess it's just who I am as a person. But like, I've been there, so I know what it's like, and I cannot look at someone in good conscience and good faith and go home and be like, that doesn't exist. I did not see that. That did not happen, because I did see it. And I know if I would have maybe possibly had somebody like me back when I was struggling, maybe it would have been different for me, right? Yeah. Maybe it wouldn't have taken me as long. Maybe it would have. Maybe it wouldn't have. I really don't know. But maybe it would have been different. Maybe my self-esteem wouldn't have been in the toilet where I had to claw my way back up to feeling like a woman.
And I wanted to also talk to you about homelessness, Jen, since I know you also work with people who are struggling with homelessness. Mm-hmm. So can you talk to me, so women who are homeless, do they face more violence than women who are housed, especially from domestic partners?
My first go-to is to say yes to that, but I don't know if it's more, but it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot on both hands. If you're in a domestic situation, whether you're housed or not, it's not good. Mm-hmm. I remember when COVID first came around here, and we're in New York, and we had a shelter in place. The amount of domestic calls were insane, because now you have two people who live in a domestic violence situation, but because we have work, church, and school throughout the day, people had separation from each other. Yeah. And then all of a sudden COVID happened, and we were mandated to stay in the house all day, every day. And now you have people who have substance use disorder and domestic violence in their house. They are drinking like fish, because what else is there to do? We can't even go outside. And their domestic is getting even worse, because now there's no bumper in between to be able to help facilitate some sort of separation. I think with homelessness, you're already so down on your luck, and you're already so down on yourself, your situation, what's happening, all of that other stuff. And you just get to the point that you're just disgusted, right? And you just feel like So what? So what, that man, yoked me up and put his hands on me, like, whatever. And then if you are in a domestic living situation while being homeless, example, sharing the same tent or living in the same spot or couch surfing in the same place, shit's already tense. Like, in your life, you're at a max capacity for what you can deal with. And even situations that aren't normally domestically abusive become that way just due to the fact that how much stress can one person take, right? Mm-hmm. You're homeless. You're lucky. Maybe you still potentially have your job, but you're not home. You don't know where any of your stuff is. You're putting yourself in very confusing situations because you're now homeless. So you could potentially be around people that you don't know who they are, or I know a lot of my girls, when they're homeless, the first thing they do is they shack up with a dude, right? Because it's just easier that way, and that's just how the world works. And then they get in these situations, the dude's house that they're staying at had somebody else come over. And before you know it, they think they're a nice guy, and they're not, and they're arguing over something, or maybe they start talking, and then it's just, I guess the short answer to that is, do I think they experience more? I guess there's really no straight answer for that. I think they definitely, yes. I don't know if it's more. It might be more by strangers, because unfortunately sometimes when we are homeless and living in these situations, we do things we normally wouldn't do to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. And so for homeless women, I know there are instances where substance use and homelessness overlap. Looking at the lens specifically of homelessness, how do these women get resources, especially because I don't know what it is with like resources, authoritative figures in the city, like they don't want to help homeless people, seems like,
because they're too good for that and they think they're better than. They sit in their comfy office, wearing their nice little clothes, and they got their coffee on the way into work, and they drive home in their car, and they turn water on, and they flush a toilet when they go to the bathroom, and they think these people are asking for extravagant wants by wanting some deodorant and lip balm. And, people want toilet paper. They're not asking for a room at the Four Seasons. They want to wash their hair. And people get so caught up on like, oh, they're just trying to use the system. They're trying to get what they can get. Yeah, they're trying to eat. They're trying to wash their clothes. They're not trying to skate by. They're not asking for a Porsche. They're asking for a roll of toilet paper. And then people, they get so high and mighty because they've never been there and they've never struggled and they don't know what it really feels like. When you go and you say, why aren't you talking today? And then you finally get the courage and you say, well, I ran out of toothpaste 2 days ago, and I don't have any way to brush my teeth, and I didn't want to speak because I'm embarrassed. Or, I'm a woman and I'm going through my monthly cycle and I don't have any products and I'm very uncomfortable. And it's really, really hard for me right now to get up and walk over there and hand in those papers that you need to hand in. I just really need some help. And then people look down on you and they judge you. And when you leave, they're talking about you, and then you have to go back and say, hey, can I get my food stamp card, updated because the temporary one you gave me doesn't work anymore, or whatever. People sit up there on their judgmental high horse and act like they're too good to ever be homeless or they're too good to ever have substance use. And let me tell you, it does not discriminate. It does not by any means whatsoever. If it wants you, it's coming for you and it will take you. And then you can go back to that office that you used to work in and find out how it really feels.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what can we do to, because I think charity towards people who are homeless, I think sometimes it can be like very incentivized by that feel-good feeling and, I've seen when I'm walking past and someone gives something, and I think, yeah, it's good, like when you give spare cash, but it's very, it's a lot of showmanship. Here, this is all I got left. And it's loud. It's so loud.
Yeah, some people can be condescending.
So,
I mean, there are individuals who I would never take anything from. And I know what that's like. I've been in that position. And so if you're not truly going to help someone from your heart, don't cause them any further embarrassment. Don't cause them any further shame. You give somebody $5 and then you go tell the world as if you like really changed their life. No, this is where we as individuals, this is where we as humans and society have to actually care and have compassion. Because even if I can put $20 in your hand, I don't need to go tell everybody else that I did that. And it takes a lot when you have to walk into an office and you're applying for food stamps. It takes a lot when you're going to family and friends saying, you know, I'm in this abusive relationship, or I have this drug addiction problem or alcohol problem, and I need to feed my children. Can you help me? When you put yourself out on a line and you're asking for help and you're admittedly saying, you know, I have a problem, but I need help, and for people to give you their disdain, you know, that adds to the low self-esteem, that adds to the abuse, that adds to the issues with addiction, and it does not help at all. It doesn't. So again, I think as society as a whole, we need to do better and come down off of those high horses, because it can happen to anyone at any time. And I think we all just need to just take a look. And I feel the same way, you know, as Jen. I try so hard to help, and I always have in the back of my mind, I never want anybody to feel what I felt. If I can stop somebody from going through what I went through, if I can help somebody out of that situation, I want to with everything I have in me, because I know what it's like. I know what it's like. Even just to have the fear of not knowing, how am I going to keep the lights on in this house? How am I going to feed my children? I know what that's like. And to be able to have come out of it and get to where I am now, I would do any and everything in my power to help somebody else from not going through that. Like that thought, like that can keep me up at night sometimes. I could never look at a woman and her children, or a man and his children, or anybody, and not help them if I could. And maybe I can only give them a phone number. If I can give money, I'll give money. If I can give you whatever it actually is that you need, I just would not be able to rest that night knowing that I didn't even try. I wouldn't be able to do that at all.
I think that's an amazing point, Tia, how you drew that parallel between pity and contempt and disdain. Like, contempt and disdain is like a very, very similar thing in energy to pity. And I don't feel like some people understand that condescension is not kindness.
It's not. Not at all.
And people, and they swear it is. Like, they swear it is. And it is so belittling.
Yes.
And, like, it is just, you know, I don't just walk up to someone and say, here, you want $20? Like, because what's that going to do? That's like looking at a piece of art, but not really understanding it, right? I would prefer, like, hey, you want to go get a meal together? Like, what's up? How'd you get here? Like, Are you good? What do you really need? Like, can I get you a bus ticket somewhere? Like, does your dog, like, a lot of times everyone seems to have dogs. Can I get your dog some food? Like, let's go get a cup of coffee. Be a person. Be a human being. Sometimes the greatest gift that you can give someone who is struggling is simply the gift of being heard. Whether you understand it or not, just sitting there and letting them be heard. It's like, I know for me, when I'm struggling and someone just lets me get it all out, even if they have no idea what I'm really talking about, just the simple fact that I got to lay that out and say it out loud helps me, first off, work through so many things. It's crazy. And like, I feel like, thank you. Like, you made me feel like a person. You know what I'm saying? Like, you let me get that off my back. You heard me out. You treated me like a person. And people are so quick to judge people that are homeless. Listen, they didn't wake up and decided, hey, I'm going to go be homeless today.
Right.
They went through some stuff to get to that point. And they're still here. They still get up every morning. They live in a condition that those people that are judging them probably couldn't last a day. And they still have a smile on their face. Every time someone helps them, God bless, thank you. You know, they still, they're better humans. And I know that sounds crazy, but at the end of the day, they truly are, because they're still grateful, they're humble, they're polite. I mean, I work with an entire group of homeless people, and they get out, they open the door for me, you know, get up, Jen's coming. Oh, here, wait, let me move this. Let me get this out of the way. Let me clean this up for you. You know, respect. And I feel like people, all these bougie people, get so caught up with how great their life is that they forget they're one bad decision away from that tent or that park bench or whatever the case may be. Because at the end of the day, we are all only human, and all it takes is that one mistake or that one thing you didn't see coming to be right there next to them.
Yeah. Or, I mean, a lot of people are one paycheck away from losing everything that they have. And that's a huge number of just Americans itself, just in the United States. But as we are just under the hour, I want to share the national helpline for substance abuse and mental health services. And this is in the United States. The number is 800-662-4357. And again, this is the number for substance abuse mental health services. The number is 800-662-4357. I want to encourage everyone, as usual, whatever the local domestic violence agency is in your area, be it a local number or a national number, to reach out for any assistance that you need. Even if it is for substance abuse, still reach out to that organization and let them direct you to where you need to go. Always call to get information. And I understand dealing with more than one issue is not just domestic violence. Sometimes it's the domestic violence and substance abuse and, dealing with a job and dealing with children and dealing with illness, dealing with sickness. We understand that there is usually more than one issue wrapped up. But please, wherever you are, reach out and start somewhere. So with that, Carrie, I want to give you your final comments, and then Jen, we will end with you and, whatever you want to leave the listeners with on tonight.
So Jen, I just wanted to ask you, you have this story that's like, you went up this hill that was almost a 90-degree angle. And how can women push forward and still feel purpose, that they have dreams, that dreams are for them? I guess I feel like mindset tips was like such a hashtag or cliche, but I guess advice is kind of subjective. So I guess maybe what would you say to yourself at that point where you felt like you, remember when we talked and you told me about how you got that first job at the pizzeria?
Mm-hmm.
And now you're who you are. So I guess, what would you say to yourself at that point if you wanted to motivate her to push?
I think, if you would have told me then that this was going to be the life that I have now, oh my God, I would have a really hard time believing that, because I was a girl then, and now here I am, I've turned into the woman I was always supposed to be. And I guess I would just tell her, just keep going forward. Everything that has happened, it has been for a reason, and you have never been alone on this path. Even when you felt like you were, you never were, and the best is yet to come. Just keep going, because the things that are You always make me cry every time we talk. Ugh. And it's true, though. Like, I never would have thought the things that I do now, or the things that I've accomplished, or getting custody of my daughter back, or just, waking up and getting the honor of working with the people that I work with every day. I never thought that this was going to be possible. I just celebrated 3 years home from prison. And in 3 years, I have grown and learned and done so much. I'm legitimately proud of myself, and that's like a very foreign emotion for me. And women, we're incredible, right? We make life, we nurture life, we set the tone for the houses we live in, and we grow these tiny humans, and we teach them how to be better humans and how to become great and how to be whatever their little hearts want them to be. But yeah, sometimes we forget about ourselves, and it's okay to still want things. It's okay to be a woman and still have dreams and aspirations and obtain them and set goals and bash them down and keep going. And it's okay when they change, right? If we get somewhere halfway and we say, hey, this really just isn't for me, I think I want to try this, do it. We only go this way once. Use every moment to every opportunity possible, and never, ever give up on yourself, ever.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Jen. You have just been amazing on tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. Luv Bay, if you want to catch up on previous episodes from the program, you can visit our YouTube channel, Suffering in Silence DV. We want to thank you for joining Suffering in Silence with Minister Tia on Luv Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We are here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Luv Bay family, we are continuing to rise out of the ashes together. Good evening.